Okay, so a while ago I had an idea, right? I wanted to build a small table, but I didn't want it to be like too simple, but I didn't want it to be too crazy either. So I thought what to do, combine a cutting board with the table. I built like a good amount of cutting boards, so shouldn't be nothing crazy. And it wasn't nothing crazy, it's just my patience level was like zero tolerance. So I obviously made a lot of mistakes that now looking back on them were very simple to fix if I took the time for it. So I'm gonna just go over those mistakes with you guys and just show you guys how I built it and what not to do. Okay, so first things first, I started by cutting down my lumber. I had to create my two legs and top part for the table, and I had to get them ready to cut all my strips out. I didn't plane it just because I don't have the best experience with planers. Making things perfectly like leveled is not for me. It's really hard for some reason. But I did use the joiner to join one side and run that side along the fence of the table saw to cut my strips and make them as perfect as I could. I know they're not perfect, but just as perfect as I could. And before starting this project, I did not realize how much strips I was going to need to cut. So I was at this table saw for like a good while cutting all these strips. And I literally just counted right now while editing. It was 30 strips that I did have to cut out. And that may not seem like a lot to most woodworkers, but for someone starting out, making baby steps towards bigger pieces of furniture, that was a good amount for me. But it was something new and a great challenge to overcome. And the real scary thing about this project was that I did not create a rough attempt or like design it at all. I just winged it and was like, we're just gonna glue 3 boards and connect them together somehow, and just was figuring out along the way. And money-wise, like if I did mess up the project and I had to end up scrapping it, I would have low-key wasted, a pretty penny, wasted, a big board of walnut and a big board of maple, which would not have been the best thing. And after cutting out all my 30 strips of maple and walnut, I ended up picking the pattern of doing, 2 walnut strips, 2 maple strips, 2 walnut strips, 2 maple, and 2 walnut. And I thought it looked really nice. The only thing that did suck was I had to do 3 different glue ups. And during this project, I ended up moving. So it took me I think 3 or 2 months to build it. Not because I was super slow, but just because I took big breaks. I wouldn't start working on it for a couple of days and then took a fat break, another couple of days, took a fat break, and then I finally finished it all together. And after finishing up my last glue up, I was super excited and ready to actually get started on the project and do those nice, beautiful touches. I had to run it through the planer, trim up the sides to make it the edges and the board just as perfect as it could be, which obviously is nowhere near perfect because I still suck at making things leveled and squared. Okay, so first problem I had with this was not fully designing it, right? I had all my pieces ready to go. I just didn't know how I wanted to connect them, which I should have done way before building it. But there was 3 options. Joinery, it was out the window. I didn't have the patience for that. Then there was buying pieces off of Amazon to assist it. Out the window, I wanted it to be fully built by me. Third option was just getting maple beams to make maple beams and put them in the middle. And I was like, okay, that'd be pretty good, right? It'd match with the table and it would look nice. The only thing was now how do I attach the maple beams? The easiest option was screwing it, because you could do joinery too, but I don't want to learn that. That's a little too hard for me. So screws, and my idea was to just plug them with walnut and maple pieces and just saw it off. And that was a good idea. It worked good. It just snowballed into a couple more problems that I had because I didn't take the time to learn how to do that properly. And the only downside of choosing to build the maple beams was that I did have to unfortunately go to the lumberyard, spend a little bit more money. Nothing crazy because I still have a lot of wood left over that I can use. And it was only I think $28. So it was kind of worth it, but I just had to spend more money, unfortunately. And to build the beams, I had to do the usual, just cut them down to size, trim them up. And I did decide to add a nice little round over using the router, so it wouldn't just be a basic beam, it could be a little nicer. And as always with any woodworking project, I did have to do a lot of sanding because unfortunately my planer does have a lot of snipe. And I ended up buying some new planer blades because I feel like that might be it because they're super old, so I feel like it should be better now. Hopefully that works. But I don't record too much of the sanding just because I usually like to watch TV shows or movies or YouTube while I'm doing it because it is super boring. So I can at least entertain myself a little. Okay, so the next major mistake was doing something prematurely, right? I had all the pieces laid out, the 2 legs, the top, and I decided to use a chamfer bit and route it before gluing it up because for some reason I thought it made sense, but doing that just snowballed into a bunch of more problems in the future of this project. So I'm glad I learned my lesson, but it was still kind of hard to recover from that. But I'm going to explain to you guys how I did that. Okay, and as you guys see me making this great mistake of using the chamfer bit, at the time I was really happy about it. I thought it looked good, I thought it was great, thought everything was sweet, until I realized when I connected the pieces that they weren't all perfect and did not line up perfectly. If you faced them all in one direction, it would line up, but when I put them in all in their different places, it was just slightly off, and routing the top was just kind of like messed up. Like I should have just done it once everything was glued up and perfect. It would have been great like that. And once I was using the screws to put in between the pieces of wood, I had a lot of less room to work with because part of the board was just cut off because of the router bit. So it made it a little more trickier to try to just make sure I get right in the middle. And the one thing that I did have patience for during this project was pre-drilling the holes so that the screws wouldn't like split the wood. And it did take a little longer, but like after doing all this stuff and like the experience that I've gained, I really realized that patience is key when it comes to the perfect little details with woodworking. Okay, now that I finally put my table together, all I had to do left was drill out the plugs and saw off the excess wood. And this was probably one of my favorite parts of the project because I always see videos on Instagram or YouTube of people doing this where they'll plug it in and then saw off the excess wood. So I really thought I was professional doing this, but I had a lot of fun doing it. The only problem with this was I think my drill bit wasn't sharp enough, or my drill just didn't have enough power, but it would take a lot just to drill out the thing, and then it would get stuck in there, so I had to use like some chisels and like bang it out a little. So that was the only major problem, but besides that, it was all good. So the major problem with this project was just the patience. That snowballed from everything, you know, routing too early, giving myself less room to put the wood plugs in, and then not learning the proper technique of putting wood plugs in and sawing them off. Because when I used the same drill bit that was the size of the plugs to drill in, it ended up splitting the wood. Because when I routed it, you know, it went from straight to like slanted, right? Or like this way, like slanted. So like when I drill it, this piece would start splitting open, and it was just not the best thing. Even when it was face down too, some of them didn't split, but like 2 of them, I think out of the 4 that was face up did split. So I should have just took the proper time to learn that technique, and I shouldn't have routed out as early. And now that I know that, like patience, like I'm gaining more experience, so I know that patience is like key when it comes to those small perfections. And hammering in these plugs and sawing them off and sanding at the end, I really did have a lot of fun doing that. It just was so satisfying to me just seeing it become all flesh. And the only problems that I had with this part weren't too bad, but sometimes the plugs wouldn't all be the same. So either I had to sand them a little just to make them a little slimmer, or I had to drill the hole a little bigger so that they could fit in. And the best thing that I learned from this part was that I should have put wood glue in the screws, because originally I just screwed it, no wood glue, right? And I did fortunately put the wood glue in the plugs so that the plugs would, you know, stay there. The only thing is that's not what is supporting them. It's like the screws on the inside. So before I did my final glue up with this, it was still a little wobbly. I still low-key didn't trust the support of it. So what I decided to do was put glue in the gaps between the pieces because it wasn't perfectly flush and connecting. So I put glue, a little bit of sawdust, but mostly just glue, and I re-clamped it. And after re-clamping it, it ended up coming out perfect and flush and was just felt a lot stronger, like I could actually sit on it without being scared it would break. But if I originally put glue in those screws, it would have came out a lot better too with more support. But overall, this project really turned out really great. I'm really happy with it. I fell in love with it. And I'm glad I made it because I learned so much from it, from all my mistakes. Like especially patience, because throughout my wood projects, I slowly grow and grow more patience. And I'm understanding that, you know, the more time that I take, the more like perfect it'll be in my eyes. But the other things that I learned is like if I ever use screws again, you know, dip them in glue before I screw them in. And learning and watching videos on the proper techniques and how to do stuff. And the most important, actually designing this project fully, you know, like knowing what techniques I'm going to have to use so I can learn them. That way I can make the project like as perfect as I can. And finally getting to add that mineral oil, like it was all worth it in the end. Like I really do love woodworking and just love what, you know, you can create with your own hands. And it just turned out really great. I'm really proud of myself for this one. And I hope you guys think it looks good because, you know, I think it looks good. And I hope you guys learn as much as I did making this project. But this is the final product.